we became the only council among 14 nationwide to not accept the need to fluoridate water to prevent dental decay in what's in general one of the poorer and more needy populations in the country.
There seems to be some, I guess, fringe or extreme views out there. The fluoride thing is one of them. There's the anti-vax thing, there's the anti-mandate thing, and they all seem to be sort of attracting similar people, and they all seem to be sort of loosely coordinated and working together. For some reason, our council decided that first of all, we would accept the money from the Ministry of Health to put the fluoridating dosing equipment into our water treatment plants. But then when it came time to activate it, we wouldn't do it. And so we accepted the money, then we said we wouldn't do it. And it came, as you say, came down to a casting vote of the mayor.
Hello, and welcome to the Frontline with Dr. Whangarei Mayoral. Wow, what an interview I've got for you this week. It was fascinating. I spoke for an hour with Ken Couper. He is probably not someone whose politics would agree with my own, yet at the same time, his vision of how we improve the lives of the average Whangarei resident or Northlander or New Zealander, I think will resonate with probably every listener. He's a fourth generation dairy farmer. He's running for mayor of Whangarei District Council. He served on the council for several terms, and the summary of an hour of talking to him is that he is a decent and thoughtful man. Not flashy, not divisive, not the kind of guy who will win on a 3 or 4 second soundbite. He will win if you listen to his words. Now, yeah, as I said, his politics don't align with mine at the national level. I think he's a national supporter, and I guess we could talk central politics in another time, and it would be an interesting conversation. But I think this is a conversation that will appeal to you no matter where you live in the country. Frontline is a national show. I want to talk about issues everywhere, but the issues that are being faced in this region are echoed throughout the country. So the kinds of topics that we discussed, issues like three waters, co-governance, fluoridation, and the anti-fluoride movement, the anti-mandate folks, the anti-vax folks, joblessness, youth undertraining and unemployment, the kind of national governmental changes that are making it difficult for the middle class to get an education, to get housing, to get health care. The idea in politics of the showman wearing the bright vest and going to all the publicity events versus quiet competence. Yeah, this was a really fascinating conversation. We covered roading, rubbish, water safety, pollution, dairy farming, environmentalism, and a whole lot more. I think you'll find it interesting, and I hope you listen for the whole hour because it's fascinating. and it was a chance to build some bridges. It was really interesting. And I hope to do more of this kind of thing. So if you have someone out there that you think is progressive, dynamic in terms of their thoughtfulness, not necessarily just their showmanship, yeah, feel free to have them get in touch with me. I'd like to talk to more folks from local government that are trying to do good things for their communities, and put some hard questions to them and see how they answer. Yeah, so stay tuned. You've got a good one in store. Joining me today, Ken Couper. I'm glad to have you. You're a mayoral candidate. Can you introduce yourself for those that may not know you?
Thank you very much, Gary. Yes, I'm Ken Couper. I'm standing for the position of Mayor of the Whangarei District up here in Northland, and it is an absolute pleasure to be here. I guess some of my background, I'm a dairy farmer. I'm fourth generation dairy farming in the Waipu Valley, which is just to the south of Whangarei. And I have served 2 terms on council, so yeah, would very much like the opportunity to progress some ideas that are in train, and I think we can probably do better in quite a few areas. So yeah, thank you.
Do you have enough time now to talk through some issues of both local and national significance? I'd be interested in getting your opinion on some things.
Thank you. Yes. Well, I mean, it's very interesting times, even on a global scale, isn't it? I mean, there's so much going on, and you might wonder what that has to do with us at local government level, but the national government is responding to the global situation. There is, of course, a tightening of the belt. There's a cost of living crisis here at home, and what that is meaning is that the attention for, or the tightness for the dollar is drifting right down to the local government area. And what we are finding is that in order to try to control things, there is a risk of localism being lost, and a risk that mandates will come from central government, and we will have to respond to those. And while at times there is logic for those, at other times I think that we need to push back and make sure that we keep our local input. So yeah, I hope that gives you a bit of a start, Gary.
Sure. We had one little hiccup where we lost connection for a couple of seconds, but the idea behind it was still came through, that you are all for local control and local decision making when and where appropriate.
Absolutely, yes, I am, and I believe it's actually critical. That is our strength, isn't it? It's our people, and we have to let the people have a say in how they run their businesses, and that's what local government's all about. And I think we should strive very carefully to keep that.
Can we kind of back up a second? And for those of us that are not aficionados and don't watch videos of council meetings, can you give us an idea of what Whangarei District Council does, and also equally important, what it does not do?
Okay. There are the core activities: road, rubbish, water services, those sort of things. And then there's the, I guess, equally as important as the parks, recreation, and the funding of the arts, museums, and so on. And then depending on which sort of government and the focus is at the time, you get into the 4 well-beings. And so the last government was very keen on the 4 well-beings. That's looking after people, the pensioner housing, social side of things, safeties in the city, and all that sort of stuff. Whereas this government, and I think it's due to the economic crisis and the concern about the rates rises that has been going around, has been trying to focus people more on doing the core jobs, infrastructure, roads, rubbish, rates, water, that sort of thing. So the council meetings, in our case, there is 14 elected members, one of those being the mayor. And so you meet to resolve which way the council's going on any particular topic. And the side, or the majority, will set the direction. And so that's how it works. And and to be fair, it has worked well for our district largely, but there is that, I guess, that age-old conflict of interest of elected members being in a position to do things that people want to be, that will get them re-elected, versus sometimes making hard calls about decisions that are needed for the good of the community, but perhaps may not be so popular. And that's something that every elected member has to navigate. So yeah, that's been in a nutshell.
Okay, that gives me a good idea. Let's talk about what you don't cover. What does the
Yeah.
council not get an opinion on or not have legal authority to decide?
Right. Well, I guess I probably should have said the district councils are at the bottom of the pile. So you get a central government policy. That's, what are we calling that? A national policy statement. So that'll come down, and we have to enact that. And you see that in the building code and stuff like that. A good one is around the insulation of houses and healthy homes. So then that is given to the councils to enact and regulate. Then there is regional policy statements, which comes from the regional council, and that'll be over things like areas of environmental floodplains, those sort of things like that, and the council has to enact those. Now, both those last examples are actually unfunded mandates, so they impose these regulations that we have to enact, and then we are left to find the resources to do that. And then so the council then will come up with its own bylaws, and one that we've recently looked at is a bylaw around alcohol, for instance. The dog and animal bylaw. So smaller things like that comes down to the district council. We are not supposed to be providing housing, social housing, pensioner housing, things like that, and nor are we supposed to be looking after the homeless and so on and so forth. But all these problems fall down to the district council if they're not looked after by the relevant authorities, and too often they're not. And so we end up dealing with the problem, and it's a difficult space. And a classic example would be the City Safe in Whangarei. Now, I don't know if you've been in town lately, but the council funds those City Safe people. In theory, that is a central government role through the police. I've had talked to Mark Mitchell about it when he was up in Whangarei. He's quite clear they don't have the money to do that sort of thing, and encourages us to continue funding that. But that, of course, comes out of rates, doesn't it? So there's a conflict there at times, and it's a balancing act, and it's not always as straightforward as people may believe it to be.
I'd like to wade into the contentious issue that seems to be like on all the local Facebook, the community pages, newspapers. It's everywhere. It's the rates rises. We know that if you are a pensioner on a fixed income, for example, facing big increases in rates feels threatening. You worry about losing your home, not being able to stay in it. During a cost of living crisis, people have trouble paying, coming up with the extra money, going through just an awful economic situation right now. But I want to talk to you about the other aspect of it, because it's very easy to say lower our rates, no rates rises. We don't want this. It's horrible. Councils are illegitimate and ineffective and inefficient when they spend our money, and it's runaway prices and runaway costs, and rates rises are crazy. I'm going to counter that with a conversation I had with two guys that were in my neighborhood for days and days digging up old pipes. So I think it's a water main. I could be mistaken, but it was a large cast iron or steel pipe. It looked like it was from another century. It was more rust than it was steel, and it was just ancient looking. So obviously it must have been an incredibly expensive adventure where they were tearing up footpath and pulling up this degraded pipe that had been leaking and had been like partially repaired, but had given up the ghost. And so I asked them, what is the state of this? Like what I'm looking at it looks like a relic from the 1800s. And they said, this is everywhere throughout the city. We've got, and the country, indeed, we've got old infrastructure that was never maintained, never upgraded, never replaced. And finally, we're getting to the end of a lifetime of neglect and underinvestment and under repair. So I counter anytime I hear someone say, lower rates or no rates rises. Is there not also a tsunami of infrastructure need that we have collectively, all of us, not taken care of and not paid for, that, and now the chickens are coming home to roost, whether it's stormwater, drinking water, or sewerage? Please,
Yeah.
am I right, or am I off
Oh,
there on a
no,
tangent?
yeah, as a country, it's a problem all over the country, and there has been a lack of asset management, I guess you'd say, and the ability to sort of put money aside to make sure we're keeping up with the depreciation or maintenance of these assets. I think, to be fair to Whangarei, as bad as that example is that you saw, we are better than most regions, we are told, when it comes to the water infrastructure, so sewage and fresh water supply. But it doesn't take away from the fact that these assets are out there and they are deteriorating and depreciating every single day, and we have to be able to replace them. We have to put that money aside. So when people, you're right, when people say we are going to have no rates increases, we are going to cut things to the bone. In the past, that perhaps has happened, and it leads to situations like your pipe that was local to you, by the sounds of it. And it's definitely a big problem in other areas of the country, and it is why successive governments have grappled with the problem of the water supply. It is not, and it comes back to what I mentioned before about the elected members having that conflict of interest. You put money into pipes under the ground, people can't see that. You build a new playground or an opera house, people do see that, and you get kudos and votes. And then after you're gone, these pipes are still there and they're still deteriorating. So it has to be, those assets have to be managed properly, and that is why the Labor government, first of all, came up with a three waters proposal, and this current government has turned it into the local waters done well. What they're trying to do is force it out of the elected members' hands and into an efficiency model that will make sure that these assets are managed properly. And I think around the country there is an understanding and an agreement that something needs to change so that we can do this properly. So yes, it's a massive problem, Gary, and it's out there for sure.
That's an interesting point you raise, because you're never going to see a plaque saying, Mayor Cocarulo sponsored this sewer pipe. It's always going to be sort of flashy things, and I guess the more you concentrate on actual infrastructure, the more of a thankless job it's going to be. There's very few photo opportunities for saying I handled the region's sewer and wastewater well. So I guess that's probably a constant problem for government, for local government. Three Waters looked to consolidate 67 small organizations, so small councils, work into 4 regional ones, and it sought to, as I understand it, get national funding at good rates that a council could never hope for. Like central government is able to get a low interest loan with much better rates than a council. But I think the idea that really stuck in a lot of people's throats or in their minds was this idea of selling assets, so like losing assets to central government. Um, and I mean, for the life of me, I don't understand how a bunch of decaying pipes and falling apart infrastructure can be seen as an asset. It seems like it would be more of a liability, but perhaps you can speak to that. And then it also seemed to me like having a central funder to regenerate and renew all of this infrastructure, which was estimated to, I think, cost something like 185 billion. At least that's the numbers I found in mainstream media. 185 billion over 30 years, an unimaginably huge infrastructure number. But I think there wasn't the appetite, as well as this idea of losing control of it. The idea that Modi would have kind of any say in that or any control over part of that did not sit well with a lot of, well, I don't know about a lot, but with a decent number of New Zealanders. And so it was killed, it was repealed, it wasn't really replaced, it doesn't sound like, but it was killed. And now are we in a better situation in your mind? Is this better? I think they've gone to 10 from 67 council sets of infrastructure down to 10 for the waste and freshwater supply. Is it better? Are we in a good situation? Was it good to have gotten Three Waters repealed? Was it bad in your estimation, or was it somewhere in the middle?
I think it was somewhere in the middle, Gary, to be honest. I just want to go back. One of the reasons that we've got into this situation is that there was no regulator that had teeth that enforced the drinking water standards and also the wastewater standards. So there are numerous plants around the country that are in violation of their resource consents, and nobody was holding those councils to account. So something had to happen. We can't just have sewage and going into the harbour and things like that, or the harbours. So it had to happen. The Three Waters was, I think, a solution, and in a lot of ways it was a good solution. It required the government to come out strong and lead on this topic, and they did. Unfortunately, as you say, there was a perception that certainly councils like our one, Whangarei, who had no debt on the water, would be on our water assets, albeit some assets in need of repair, as you say, but had no debt. And there was a perception that we were giving away ratepayers funded assets to an entity that they would not have as much control over. And that did not sit well with our ratepayers, and you can sort of understand that in a way. Mm-hmm. And you're right about the co-governance. A lot of New Zealanders were not ready for co-governance of an entity that controlled something as fundamental as water and sewage. So that didn't sit well with people. And what happened was, obviously, it got repealed. The national government then came back in and said, there is still a problem. It hasn't gone away. We don't like the Labor government's model. And so what we are asking is for the regions to come up with their own model and work together and tell us what you want and how to manage this problem. But you've got to come up with a solution. And at the same time, the regulators that had been there before were replaced under the Labor government by regulators that had real teeth. So all of a sudden, people could be prosecuted. Chief executives of councils could be prosecuted, right up to the elected members if they could be proved that they were negligent. So we're now in a situation where a lot of people have to perform, and that's a good thing in my opinion. And the country will be better off for it. What we've got in the north, at least, is the three councils, Kaipara, Far North and Whangarei, working together to come up with a solution. I'm actually on that working group, and it's in a process which I shouldn't speak too much about because we're working through things and it's a little bit sensitive at the moment. But there is a deep understanding that the individual assets of each council will be ring-fenced, and it will not be subsidising between the councils, but there is an ability to gain efficiencies through shared services. And so that's the model we're looking at the moment, Gary.
Will it have that sort of central government thing of being able to borrow money extremely cheaply?
Yes, they are able to borrow money through the LGFA, Local Government Finance Authority, and at a rate that the councils can borrow money. Where the catch is, and local government authority, territorial authorities like the Whangarei District Council can borrow a multiplier of their income, of their rates take for borrowings to fund their activities. The water authorities are going to be able to borrow a multiplier that is far higher because they only have assets that return income. So there's a targeted rate on the water and on the sewage. So that allows them to borrow money at a far higher percentage to the asset base that they've got, whereas councils have got roads and so on that don't return income. So it's while in one way it'll frees up the money to do all that work that you were talking about, it's still going to have to be paid for, isn't it? And that is going to be the conundrum. That money is going to have to be paid for by the people who use the water and sewage, and so therefore that has to be very carefully worked out and has to be kept affordable. And there is a watchdog in place to make sure that happens, and the government have recognised that danger and they've put that watchdog in place.
In doing some pre-reading for this interview, I reacquainted myself with the Havelock North crisis, right? World's largest Campylobacter outbreak, sheep feces going into the aquifers, going into drinking water, sickening 5,000 or more people, hospitalizing something like 50, causing 4 deaths. Now we've got dairying, farming-related nitrates leaching into drinking water on the South Island, quite extensively, high levels of nitrates. Do you see us dealing with those sorts of issues locally? Do you think that we're capable of it? And like, what's your look? Are you positive on how our handling of the 3 waters will go, or are you worried about it?
A bit of both, actually. I think the watchdogs that I've talked about, they operate at a national level and they have national standards. So when it comes to dealing with problems like the nitrates in the water and those sort of things, they will not be subject to the local whims of the electorate. The actual ability or the horsepower, if you like, of the entities that are being created to solve the problems will come down to the caliber of the people that are put on to run them. And I guess that's one of the benefits, that it is moving it away from the control of the elected members and putting it into organisations where people are being appointed based on their abilities and their merits. And I think that is a good thing. How eventually it'll shake out, Gary, I'm not sure, but you would hope that those elected members who are involved in setting it up understand the responsibility of having the right people in there to manage it. And yes, yeah, there's a lot of
let's talk about the right people for a minute, because I think that's relevant. During the past year, there was a media circus whereby Whangarei District Council became, I don't know, I guess if you supported the anti-fluoride side, it became like a pursuit of freedom and democracy. If you supported the side of fluoride, reducing cavities and harm and preventable tooth decay and surgeries and cost to communities and cost to taxpayers, like I do, then you would feel very differently. Like what I saw looked like just a bunch of shenanigans going on. Kind of is like a weaponization of a divisive topic. I think politicians call these wedge issues, where you can sort of split the public along some lines and get people to follow you, at least from one side. It seemed like it was political posturing and maneuvering. There was one of the counselors, the mayor, said he would go to prison for democracy. What he was referring to is essentially fluoridation of water, supported by virtually every dentist and dental association of repute internationally and in New Zealand. So this was Vince Cocarulo saying he would go to prison in order to push his anti-fluoride beliefs. He was willing to have the council fight against Sir Ashley Bloomfield and Diana Sarfatti, the Director General of Health. We became the only council among 14 nationwide to not accept the need to fluoridate water to prevent dental decay in what's in general one of the poorer and more needy populations in the country. And I think it was a split vote, somewhere like maybe 6-6, and he did the or something like that, and he cast the tiebreaker vote. And actually, correct me if I'm wrong, but sort of showboated a bit and challenged government, I guess, to arrest him or imprison him. He said he was willing to fight this to the end and end up in prison. Yet curiously, I note that he is not in jail or prison. Somehow it was rhetoric. It seems to have been words. And it was at the risk of costing government. I guess each counselor could be liable for $200,000 in fines for going against the government rules. Um, it risked government sacking the council, and it risks the $10,000 a day fine. I'm sure there were legal fees for all this. So that's a lot of talking. Can you just speak to the insanity that was this charade, or this, I don't know, I'm not sure what it was. Was it a distraction? Was it trying to drum up some support from, sort of fringe voters? I'm just not sure what the heck that was. So what are your thoughts on this, Ken?
It was a very disappointing time for me to be associated with the Whangarei District Council chamber. And you're right. There seems to be some, I guess, fringe or extreme views out there that, and the fluoride thing is one of them. There's the anti-vax thing, there's the anti-mandate thing, and they all seem to be sort of attracting similar people, and they all seem to be sort of loosely coordinated and working together. And the Director General of Health, Sir Ashley Bloomfield, had quite rightly decided that Northland is one of the worst cases of tooth decay and child health in the country, and Whangarei should be one of the first councils to fluoridate the water, under the power that he had from a government act, which had been supported by all of the government political parties except for New Zealand First, I understand. So as a bipartisan agreement, you could say, apart from maybe about 10% of the vote. For some reason, our council decided that, first of all, we would accept the money from the Ministry of Health to put the fluoridating dosing equipment into our water treatment plants. But then when it came time to activate it, we wouldn't do it. And so we accepted the money. Then we said we wouldn't do it. And it came, as you say, came down to a casting vote of the mayor. Now, there's a whole lot of problems with that, isn't there? And it comes back to the credibility. I mean, the first problem is that should a casting vote in in government's role be used to set the council on a collision course with the government? I don't believe it should. should we accept money and then not do what we said we're going to take with do with the money? Do what we said we're going to do with the money. So we spent it, but we said we weren't going to do it. The answer is no, we should not do that. So there's another credibility issue. Is it wise to take the government to court? Full stop. No, that's not. It's not our fight. We are directed by the Director General of Health. If people don't like it, they can go down to Parliament and protest, as is their right. But to ask us to break the law is not good. The second or the third thing, I don't mean point we're up to now because it's getting quite long, isn't it? Is that when you are running a council and you've got roading issues, you've got a new hospital required, you've got a new port that you're asking for, you've got a dry dock, you've got all this infrastructure that you're asking for. Is it a good idea to take the government to court? So there's a political nous aspect to this as well. And the answer is no, it's not. In fact, it's patently a stupid thing to do. So for all those reasons, it wasn't good. The pressure groups are out there. They haven't gone away. In fact, they are still agitating, trying to impose their will, and it's a loud minority trying to impose their will on a majority, and they get very upset when people stand up against them, and they make it personal and they make it quite nasty. And those that it affects just have to carry on. And I offer my encouragement to anyone who is fighting a battle for what you might call the middleman, the ordinary person, because it takes a bit of courage and you just got to carry on. But, we need strong people to stand up against this fringe activity.
One of the problems, though, is that people hide their fringe activity, right? They make their Facebook posts private. They hide them before elections, and they don't tell you that they're an ACT supporter, a New Zealand First, or whatever, anti-mandate, anti-vax, whatever the flavor of the week is. And you might only find out about it after you voted for them. What can regular people do to figure out who is like an honest and reputable person and who is preying upon, well, either misinformation or disinformation to, again, create these divisive issues to try to scoop up votes? How do we find out the truth?
Well, I think there's I think first and foremost, as voters, as ratepayers, community members, citizens of this country, we have to take our responsibility seriously, right? And you can drive around any part of this country, Gary, and I'm sure you have, and you will see monuments to people who made the ultimate sacrifice for our country to be free and have a clear and free democracy. So I think we cannot then just drive past those monuments and say, okay, well, thanks, guys, but we're okay right now, so we're not going to worry. There is a responsibility on us to be involved, to really understand the issues and to understand who's behind them. So we must do our homework. There are places you can go. There's a guy called Paul, the other one, who is on YouTube, and I would recommend that anybody who wants to sort of understand some of the background connections between these groups and where their tentacles go and why, you could have a look at that. I think we've also got to remember that these people have a right to their opinions. It's just how they are forcing them on people. And I guess it's really understanding who they are, what they are, and let them have their opinion by all means, but let's understand the influence that they have and where it's coming from.
I think in a lot of places around the world, these issues are percolating and simmering. We've seen Calgary. Calgary is kind of notable among medical folks because it really has been like a flip-flopping, like a ping pong ball almost effect of now fluoridation is introduced and dental decay levels drop. And now a group of people get worked up over fluoride and get rid of it, and dental decay levels rise, and then costs to the taxpayer rise because these folks need repairs, we certainly in Whangarei have kids who require on a regular basis, like I would say every week, we've got theater cases where little kids are getting dental clearances, so removal of all their teeth due to dental decay. Now, obviously, fluoride won't eliminate all dental decay, but it reduces a significant amount of it. It's quite effective and quite cost effective, and really would save us a ton, both in human suffering and in money. Yeah, so I think I'll put a link to Paul, the other one, on this podcast so that people can read more. Is he like compiling a list of, I don't know, what's a non-pejorative term I can use, of fringe politicians, or politicians that are trying to intentionally appeal to fringe ideas? Is that what he's doing, or is he just commenting on it?
No, I think he in his comments, he definitely identifies people that he think, and I think it's important to remember that it's his opinion, but he thinks that they are connected, and he calls them out in each district and council and so on and so forth, from what I can see.
He's going to have a lot of work ahead of him, because I think it is in every council. Like, we really need essentially a almost just some lists of who these folks are, so that we could know like which folks are kind of rational and which folks are seeking to divide, or to misinform, or to sow disinformation, because it's dangerous. Yeah. I won't
Gary?
ask you for any details about about the current cast of characters, but it would be good if someone put together a list of the fringiest of the fringe members, just so that people could take something into the voting booth, or just keep next to them as they watch TV, to kind of understand the backgrounds of people. I just want rational, reasonable people that are advocating for the health of New Zealanders, and advocating for one of the more marginalized communities in the country. I think we can do better than we're doing now, personally.
Can we? Sorry, Gary. Is it all right if I
Please.
you mentioned before a really interesting thing, isn't it? We've got Calgary. They went left and they went right, for want of better terms, on this topic. We seem to be doing that in this country all the time. We're either going too far one way or too far the other way. Treaty Principle Bills is an example. Maybe the Here Poor Report's an example the other way. When do we as a group of citizens say to ourselves, actually, we want to make some progress forward, not either left or right, and get some answers, and have just a middle of the road approach where we come together as communities, solve our problems, and actually get on and make some progress. And we have to stop all this back and forth stuff. It's just so damaging and stupid, actually. We've got to just go forward. So
I think part of the problem, though, as was illustrated here, is that you've now got so many politicians, and really everyone on the internet with an opinion, who we no longer value any sort of expertise, right? Somehow a councillor or a mayor in Whangarei is more of an expert than 99% of the dentists and public health doctors and epidemiologists in the country. And this is, I mean, not just health, this is almost every issue. And the hubris is quite incredible. You would never look at a complex system and I don't know, look at a rocket engineer, a data scientist, and assume that you know better. But we do that, or they do that, in politics all the time. And yeah, it's quite incredible times we're living through, where people on Facebook will trust the most poorly educated opinions on a whole host of matters, rather than people who have dedicated their entire lives and their study to trying to master a topic and help people. It's incredible. And and I'm sure there'll be people that say, oh, you're, regarding me, bought off by big fluoride or whatever craziness there is, big vax, big mandate, whatever. It just is shocking to me how low we have fallen in our public discourse. And I don't know if there is a solution to it, to be honest with you. But I do feel for what you're saying. There need to be grown-ups in the room, people who are able to say, no, we will not allow 8% of the country, a very vociferous 8%, right? You could almost say sometimes a rabid 8%. We will not allow them to speak for the silent majority, which we know on these issues is probably like 60 to 70% of society, let alone for the people on the other side, which is another 10 to 30%. So the tail is wagging the dog right now, and I long for that to end and for us to get back to just reasonable and rational interventions that actually work. And so let's talk about that for a second, Ken. What is a rational intervention from Whangarei District Council that works? Like, what are 2 or 3 things that we are doing or maybe need to do to help the middle class person in town?
Yeah, okay. Well, I guess there's firstly, to understand the problem, isn't it, is a great place to start. And I've been for the last 3 years, I've been working on a knowledge hub, and my aim, and the people who are helping me, the aim was to sort of bring some vitality and to the city centre and create a learning pathways for the kids of Whangarei District. And we felt that if we looked at the Polytech up at Raumanga, it perhaps can't reach to its end date of usefulness. Its buildings were no longer fit for purpose, and its numbers were declining. So if we could bring it into the middle of the city to a nice campus, we could solve some of the problems, and then also bring some vitality to the city centre. Once we got into it, we realised actually it wasn't going to be enough just to work in Whangarei. The fact is that the Northland as a region has some terrible statistics. And what we have is the highest number of NEETs in the country. So NEETs are children that are 18 to 23-year-olds, who are neither in education, employment or training. And we have something like 20% of that group fill that role. It's the highest in the country. And bear in mind,
20% of our youth are essentially floating around, but not getting closer to, let's say, financial or economic stability or educational progress.
Well, it's 20%. Worse than that, because each year we have about roughly 2,500 kids leave school. 20% of our 18 to 23-year-olds are NEETs, but over 50% of those 2,500 kids go into training that will not lift them, either employment or training or nothing, that will not lift them above the minimum wage in their lifetime. So you've got
50%?
These massive, over 50%. It's staggering. It's absolutely staggering. And so here we are, a region vast in area, but small in population, 200,000 people. We have the highest unemployment and the lowest GDP per head of population, and the highest number of NEETs, as I've said. We are one of the only 2 regions in the country that replace our workforce by birth rate. But of course, we can see that those kids aren't going to be work ready when the time comes. That's as we sit today. But then if you add on the infrastructure that we are requiring, and that our corporate group in the north who are doing a great job advocating for infrastructure down in Wellington, if you add on that, it's a hospital build, a 4-lane highway, a new port, a dry dock, multiple that we need to meet the housing shortage. If you add all that up, then who is going to fill those jobs? And the danger is that people from outside will come into our region and they will push our people further down. And we just can't have that. We cannot have that. as a society, as a group of people, we can't let that happen, Gary. And so this became apparent as we were working on the what we call a knowledge hub. And so we developed a strategy for tertiary education in the north. We took it to Winston Peters, Shane Jones, Grant McCullum, and also Shane Retty. And we've been down and talked to Penny Simmons, the Minister of Tertiary Education in Wellington. Talked to her a couple of times. We've been down there. And we've also got the 4 councils to buy into this strategy. And so what we are proposing is that, yes, there will be an education hub in Whangarei. Yes, it will attract students to come in there. And yes, they will move through the city and it will be great for the city. But of far greater importance is that we will have spoke system that doesn't belong to the Polytech, but belongs and operated by the individual councils for the benefit of all educational providers. So the Polytech, Auckland University, who we have an MOU with, we have an MOU with the Polytech as well. We've had Massey University come up, we've had Skills New Zealand come up, and then there's an outfit, there's all sorts of these PTEs who are trying to get involved now. So we've got momentum, and that work has been taking place over the last 3 years. I should also add that within that Knowledge Hub is an MOU with the Forum North Trust, because they want to build a theatre. We support them in their efforts to build a theatre, and that would be a great asset for the Knowledge Hub to have. And I guess just to round the picture out, what we need is accommodation, and that would become part of it in stage 2 or 3. And also there is all the student well-being, entities down Rust Avenue there with the chemists, the physio, the doctor's rooms and all that sort of stuff. So it makes complete sense, along with safe transport options for the students. So that is something that we as a council have been working on already for the last 3 years. I'd love a chance to push that along in the next 3 years. And then the other one, of course, is the economic development. So how are we going to lift ourselves out? We have to have economic development, being ready for those projects when they come as part of it, but also having using the council property, the commercial property that the council has, and leveraging that for the benefit of the community and the ratepayers to help take the burden off the ratepayers and put money into the coffers of the council. And that is work that has been happening for the last 3 years as well. And that has been stood up. So both those projects are going, both of them. I'm the Deputy Chair of the Knowledge Hub and on the working group for the commercial one. And we have been working really hard. But the answer to the success of both those projects, Gary, is that we have asked people, experts in the community, so getting back to that situation of the councillors sitting around the table, good people, elected by the people, we respect them, but not necessarily experts in everything. So we've been out into the community, asked those people who are experts to come in and help. And guess what? There's a lot out there who do want to help. They just want the opportunity to be asked. And we've had great success. So that's how that's worked. And that is something that a model that I think we should look at and continue further as we go forward.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I mean, Northland has a lot of people who, who might have lived here for generations, or like in my case, I've lived here for 18 years. You feel a connection to Northlanders, my patients, the people I've cared for, the area. And yeah, it just makes sense to harness whatever expertise you have here. People who may have been business leaders, CEOs, lawyers, accountants, and want to give back, maybe reached a point in their life where it's not all about getting ahead and making more money, but maybe it's about actually strengthening the society they live in. What sorts of commercial, I think part of this might also have been to increase the efficiency of council, reduce costs to council, and do things essentially a little bit cheaper. I had heard something about the way real estate, council real estate and things are managed. Can you speak to that for a minute? Because in all this talk of, not raising rates, the thing that goes along with that idea is increasing efficiency of council. So are we doing that, or will we in the future?
I think we will definitely with this it's a CCTA, Council Controlled Trading Organisation. It's called Whangarei Holdings. And that can definitely increase efficiencies with how we deal with the commercial sector, developers and so on, who want to come into our city and make progress and have found it very frustrating in the past. An example of a CCTO working effectively and efficiently is Far North Holdings. They delivered a dividend back to the Far North District Council, which was equivalent to about 6 or 7% of their rates, which allowed them to keep their rates lower this year. And they
That's
did
a
that.
ton.
Yeah, it's huge. And we have had nothing like that. But we've got it now, right? But those Far North Holdings, they have been working in Whangarei, doing developments in conjunction with agencies like MHUD. So they're helping to answer the housing crisis, but they're also making a profit, which is going out of Whangarei and back up to the Far North. Now, I'm pleased for them, but I'm also, that's our city. So, let's get in there and do it ourselves. So yes, it's sort of, we talked before about council's role, Gary, and I think what we're discovering on these last two topics is that council, and the mayor in particular, does not have to have all the answers to everything. We understand that. Really, what we are there to do is to facilitate those people who do what they do well to do it. And so bring them together, let them introduce them, ask them how we can help as our lane as council, whether it be zoning or regulations or whatever, and then actually get out of the way and let them get on and do it. And that is another part of how we've got the Knowledge Hub and this Whangarei Holdings set up.
Can you speak for a second, just to shift topics a little bit? You're a farmer. Are you doing like dry stock beef farming? Are you a dairy farmer, or do you do some other kind of farming?
No, I'm a dairy farmer, and fourth generation, I think I told you, but yes, fourth generation dairy farming in Waipu, and we still own the farm, and we have physical, I've rolled a couple of tractors and a truck and had some accidents and various things, my back and legs and so on. So I can no longer do the day-to-day management of the farm, but we have a very good 50-50 share milker, a guy called Conrad Samu who works for us, and he and his wife Aileen, and basically we are business partners, and it works very well. So I'm very lucky.
Can you speak for a second about council and farmers, maybe speaking to the environmental regulations? I mean, you'll often just read about, again, online, where people are talking about really oppressive levels of regulation and environmental management that stifles their ability to farm, at the same time that you will hear essentially from the other side, if there are sides to this, the other side saying there's significant improvements that still need to be made and significant compromises within the system leading to pollution and environmental degradation and the rest. So as an actual farmer, I think I would probably trust your opinion more than most of what I read, let's say in the Herald, on this issue. So you seem to be a thoughtful guy. Does it easily break down into polluters on one side and people who want to overtax them and overregulate them on the other, that are stifling the dairy industry? So like where does reality lie? Again, I suspect it's somewhere in the middle. Is that?
Yeah, and it is it's a great question, and it is a real conundrum that's out there for people to understand. And the reality is that there's not a dairy farmer that I know who doesn't want to do the right thing. And there are numerous examples of dairy farmers working with the community to achieve the social license, I guess, to do what they do. There's an understanding that we have to protect the community. I think things have come a long way. I can remember as a kid there were certain practices through ignorance, really, that took place. People just didn't understand. They have long gone, dead animals floating down the river and all that sort of stuff. Very, very rarely that you see that now, unless there's been a hang of a natural event or something. But the reality is that most farmers, and I am, and around Waipu, we've got a PRA trust, which has been set up by the farmers, a catchment committee of the river, that works closely with the farmers and the local environmentalists to one, measure and identify where we're at, two, set goals for where we want to go, and three, come up with the solutions of how to get there. And we've got a trial wetland experiment that's been set up on my farm. There's 2 or 3 others around the place. I can tell you there is a very big desire by the farmers to do the right thing. Equally, I can tell you that those people who would like the farmers to do better are fair enough to have that opinion. And together, I think we will come up with the results. But it's a job, it's a work stream that's just never going to stop. I think we just got to, each time we make an improvement, there will be something else identified that we can do better, and we'll turn our minds to it, and we will. And we've been doing that for a long time now. So
I have a lot of affinity for farmers. I grew up in a farming community, but even for the past 18 years here, taking care of farmers as patients has been a privilege. They're hardworking, affable, uncomplaining folks, almost to a person, male or female. Yeah, it's been quite a pleasure taking care of farmers here. And I'd like to point out that they're not all rich. What you read in the papers about them making enormous windfall profits, certainly in the ones I actually see in real life, and come across in my day-to-day work in the emergency department, I see people that are working very, very hard. Yeah, I'd like to hear your perspective on that. What do you think of this idea that farmers are somehow profiting from largesse?
no, look, not at all. There's, I tell you what, Gary, I will never ever look down on anyone who is homeless or has gone bankrupt or has fallen on hard times, because through my life and my wife and I, we've been farming now for nearly 40 years. There has been so many times, but for the grace of God, it could have been us. And for us, it's been fortunate. We've worked out quite well as it's happened, but we could easily have been on the other side of the fence. A lot of it comes down to luck. A lot of it comes down to whether or not you get a drought at the wrong time or a wet winter, or your cows get crook or whatever. So it's hard work. It's rewarding work. And if you get it right, you can make a living and you can do it right. But it is a risky thing, and you put all your eggs in one basket, and you have to work 7 days a week for many years to get ahead. And there won't be a successful farmer that hasn't put that time in, I can tell you now. 7 days a week for many years. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree with your summation there. I think being lucky enough to work in an emergency department, you get to see people going through some of the worst days of their lives, and multiple times a shift, you have to just sit there for a second and absorb it and say, this could so easily be me or one of my kids or someone in my family. And we're very lucky for, if we are doing okay in life, we're very lucky, and we need to appreciate that, because the situation can change in a minute.
I think, sorry, Gary, but I think
no, go ahead.
If you've had a bit of luck in life, and we were talking about people who want to help, right? There are people who have, things have gone well, they've worked hard, whatever. They do want to give back. And I think there is that saying, isn't there, that to whom much has been given, or to whom much luck has happened, much is expected. And that is a real responsibility. And I think there are a lot of people out there who feel that responsibility.
and hopefully some of them will rise to the occasion and have put their hands up to be part of local government. Um, it's interesting. It's kind of a thankless job, isn't it? Like I don't know, you get a lot of criticism. You probably have, if you're doing it right, it's probably an extraordinary amount of work. I remember just being on the Northland District Health Board and just getting to see that some people would come well prepared, having read the better part of what is sometimes hundreds of pages of preparatory material. And then others would coast in, having done so for years, if not decades, having done nothing. And you just think, I wish there was a better way. I wish we could guarantee excellence in our public sector and in our representative government. Um, but I guess, I don't know, this is my attempt to profile some voices. If other people on council would like to come and talk with me, I'm more than happy to chat. We can put some of the conversations up. You can always comment. Ken, if people want to reach you and talk about issues, how do they do that? Are you going around like sort of road showing, or I think there was sessions at Ruakaka and elsewhere. Like, which ones of those are coming up where they can talk to you more or hear you speak?
There's one coming up next Tuesday at the rugby club, Northland Rugby. That's put on by Chamber of Commerce and NZME. There's still quite a lot. There's
Be a big one.
Pararuba, Whananaki, Oakra, Whangarei Mayoral, those sort of places which are having meet the candidate evenings. I will be out and about in the city and at market days and things like that, and I would welcome the opportunity to talk to people. It'd be absolutely great. I sometimes think people have a preconceived idea, so please put that aside, come up, have a look, and a talk, and then if your idea is right, well, so be it, whether it be good or bad. But you might find that actually there's a bit of a different thing going on than what you might have thought.
And I'm really glad that we had enough time to talk for about an hour about these issues, because I think there's a certain type of person or political person that does well with 3-second sound bites, or has a showy manner, a showy presentation, or a lot of personal charisma or what have you. And I think that over the course of an hour, they might fall apart in conversation. But we've been able to have a decent conversation about a lot of issues. And I'm sure there's a ton of things that I wouldn't agree with you on politically, especially at a sort of central government level. But that shouldn't preclude our ability to talk about how we improve things for what appears to be a vanishing middle class, right? Like, the middle class is under threat. And whether you're sort of left, right, up, or down, you have to recognize that things are getting harder and the middle class is shrinking. And I think anybody or anyone that's willing to do the work to try to resist that is a good person in my book. So thank you for your willingness to talk about this stuff. I think a lot of people wouldn't want to do this for an hour to talk honestly about things. So yeah, please, any final words?
Oh, I think we used to be an egalitarian society, didn't we? We really felt New Zealand prided itself on being a place where anybody could do anything. Now we are seeing these extremes. I think you're right, Gary. It's very sad. And I don't think it's actually a sustainable way for us to go as a country. You cannot have too big a gap between the haves and the have-nots. You cannot each side cannot view each other with suspicion just because of some material or perceived material wealth. There's that saying, I'll be judged on the content of the character. I think our country needs to be judged on its content of its character now. And I think we need to look at ourselves and say, actually, are we happy with what it's reflecting? Because I think there is a real call to arms for ordinary New Zealanders to actually stand up and say, we can do better, and we want better, and we actually demand better, and we will support better. So yeah, thank you.
Well put. Well put. I think I'm going to title this, I was sort of taking notes during this whole hour, a decent and thoughtful man. That's what I think you are. And again, we live in a society that doesn't always value or recognize decent and thoughtful people. But I wish you all the luck in the world. And I hope you get the mayoralty and use it to improve the lives of average New Zealanders. So good luck with you.
Thank you very much, Gary, and I appreciate your having me on the program, and it's wonderful, and I look forward to chats in the future when we meet. So yeah, thank you. Wonderful.